Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jae Hyung from Konkuk University. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. Today, as mentioned in the title of my presentation, I would like to talk about in order to accommodate variable renewable energy, how we should improve the Korean wholesale electricity market. The speakers after myself will talk about detailed and technical issues, so I'm going to focus on basic information. As you may know very well, let's have a look at the characteristics of variable renewable energy. VRE is intermittent, it has uncertainty and variability, and it is dependent on location. Another important characteristic is that it has zero marginal cost. In other words, it has zero cost and in terms of the cost that is required to produce one more unit of power. Because of the uncertainty of VRE, we can see a significant change and fluctuation of load. And due to variability, compared to the past, the load has changed more frequently at a more significant level. The variability existed in the past, but we had the uncertainty and variability in both supply side and demand side. So this issue is something we have thought very seriously about for quite a long time. But recently, with the increase in the portion of renewable energy, the issues have received more attention. In the past, we thought that we could solve the problem with having more reserve, but now we need further more solutions, including flexibility resources. As for zero marginal cost, this will be mentioned in the other slide. As I explained, the variability and uncertainty of variable renewable energy has made it difficult to maintain the frequency at a stable level. To solve this problem, we need flexibility resource even more than you may think. If you look into details, we need to have faster ramping, faster startup and shutdown. We also need to adjust the range of dispatch. We need energy storage systems, and we need to have demand-side price elasticity and reinforced transmission system. I mentioned that VRE has zero marginal cost. It gives us two issues. The table here will be also explained by the next speaker. If you look at the slide, 30% for solar power and 10% for wind power. If you look at the third part, the average energy price decreases from 11 to 19%. And price variability ranges from 1 time to 6.6 times. This may also cause problems with adequacy in power system. Because energy price is low, the power generations may not ensure sufficient amount of revenue, and it will be difficult for them to construct new power generators. And that will lead to the lack of capacity and may possibly cause blackout. As for price volatility, it causes the uncertainty in terms of the future revenue, and it will increase the necessity for risk management. In this situation, considering the issues I mentioned before, we have to improve the electricity market. Objective of market design has always been the same. Under the given electricity power conditions, we have to ensure reliable supply of the power with efficiency. And how are we going to ensure efficiency? There are three major objectives of market design. First, you have to ensure flexibility. Then, how can we ensure flexibility with the lowest possible cost? And secondly, as seen in the diagram, there are many resources, elements that can give us flexibility. Not only ESS, but also there are various types of generators, and load demand is one of the elements we can use to secure flexibility. So we will have to make use of various elements in a way to secure flexibility. And the third one is adequacy. You have to secure sufficient amount of capacity. Then, in order to secure a sufficient amount of capacity, you need to make compensation or incentives for that. That should be reflected in the market design. First, how can we ensure flexibility? There are two main themes we have to consider for flexibility. First, we have to develop new reserve and flexibility products, and we have to open new markets. The purpose is to secure flexibility with the lowest cost. How can we provide reliable service with the lowest cost? For example, in the case of energy storage system, it has quite good response performance, but that's costly, it's expensive. So with the current conditions prepared, we cannot ensure sufficient revenue. And so if you want to engage such energy storage systems in the market, we have to develop new flexibility products and create new markets. In the case of overseas market, they have ramp products or fast frequency regulating products and so on. Second theme to be considered is one of the most important information. When you provide a certain service to a market, you should receive the proper incentive for the service. So, price and system operation should be managed in a consistent way. If a certain resources power output is set, then there should be the relevant incentive or compensation for such resource. And as I mentioned recently, the load fluctuation has increased. Under this situation, it's very easy to lose consistency between the price and system operation schedule. If we lose consistency between the two elements, then the market participants will not follow the system operator's instructions. And if that happens, there will be problem with the reliability. Even if we don't have problems with the reliability, that could cause inefficiency. So the most important thing is the consistency between the price and system operation. There will be a lot of changes in system operation. So we need a market that will ensure consistency with the price. Secondly, we need renewable energy, energy storage system, or VPP. We need to utilize those resources more often. To do that, we need to have the relevant service or power providers participate in the market. But now our current Korean market is close to traditional market. So we need to make improvement to allow for the access from other service providers. And if the energy price falls, then the investment will not be made. In the case of the obsolete LNG power or coal power plant, may have difficulties if the renewable energy providers participate more in the market. But we will need to provide compensation for the existing traditional players. In the overseas market, recently, they opened a separate capacity market to provide incentive to the traditional power generators. The capacity market needs to maintain consistency between system operation plan and the price. So they need to have more detailed plans by time slot and by location. Another approach is when we set energy price, we need to reflect the level of contribution from each energy resource. This may be mentioned by the other speakers. The operation reserve demand curve needs to be prepared so that ORDC should be reflected in the energy price. Then the energy price will slightly increase. And so this kind of approach is being taken quite often in the overseas market. So in the end, the purpose is to increase the energy price. Based on what I have talked about, I will summarize the direction for Korean electricity market reform. First of all, we have to change the way we operate the systems. That is technical issue. So once we achieve that, we will have to design the market to set the price properly. And secondly, in order to ensure flexibility, we have to develop new products and create markets. Third, we have to provide compensation for the capacity of the resources. And fourth, we have to improve the market to allow for participation from various energy providers. This is the market reform in progress. This is the current market condition. From next year, a slight change is expected. But this is a big change that we're going to make in 20 years. First of all, the price of energy will reflect the system constraints. As I mentioned, this is part of the effort to ensure consistency between the price and system operation. In the past, price didn't reflect the system operation status. So there was a certain amount of output from the system operation, which was different from the level of the price of the power. So from next year, we will be able to eliminate the inefficiency and inconsistency. And for now, we consider the level of revenue of power suppliers without reflecting the real-time actual opportunity cost, but from 2022, we will reflect the opportunity cost in the tariff. But this is not enough. So the Korean government and the Electricity Korea Power Exchange are discussing more options to make improvement. Specifically, we are trying to adopt real-time based market. As I mentioned, that means that we can have higher consistency between the price and system operation. And non-traditional resources like VRE and VPP will be able to participate in the market in the future. Now, the market design is being made in such a way, and now the time for setting price is 1 hour for now, but the time will be reduced to, for example, 15 minutes in the future, so that we can have consistency of price and reflect the real-time price. The green colored letters, as you know, Korea has cost-based pool from now on. In order to use various resources, we have to move for another type of pool because we have to consider the participation of VPP, for example. So we have to move towards price bidding pool. And we have to think about the regional signals, and we have to develop more product and ancillary services. And as for capacity, we have to discuss whether we let the market decide the price for capacity rather than regulating or setting the certain cost of capacity. And as for risk management, if we transform the current system into price bidding pool, then we will have to think about risk management tools. But there are barriers to the market reform. In my opinion, the biggest barriers are these two. First is the uncertainty, especially there is uncertainty in the industry and market structure. For the past 20 years, we didn't make any change in the electricity market. It means that for the past 20 years, we have maintained the traditional system. Now, KEPCO is almost doing the monopolized business in the electricity market. And frequency regulation, ESS, and pump energy system are all reflected in our plan. But that's not based on the market participants' voluntary decision making. So if we don't reform the Korean electricity market, then the non-traditional markets may distort the market in the future. And there are people who have already made investment in those resources. Whenever we amend rules or regulations, we may face problems like the conflicts among market participants. This is somewhat unavoidable issue. We will need to give some compensation. There are various fixed price programs, and if market is reformed, we may face strong resistance from some market participants participating in the fixed tariff-based programs. So we will have to make improvement. Maybe just eliminating the fixed price tariff-based programs could be an option. In conclusion, if the VRE increases and if the variability increases, then we will have no choice but to reform the market. If we don't do so, we may experience, at the worst scenario, a blackout, or we'll have to pay a huge amount of cost. So it is urgent that we have to basically set the direction for the electricity market structure and have concrete discussion. Thank you for your attention.